Thanks for joining me on episode 588 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Julie Tafalon. I challenge you to invest in yourself and others. Develop your influence and impact the world by using your time, talent, and treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to communicate and build relationships is vital. And one inspirational way to develop that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend Scott Mater.
It's the doing that creates the belief, not the belief that creates the doing. So don't try to will yourself into doing these things. Instead, set up the systems, the processes, and the routines so that you begin doing the work. But what I'm saying is right now, the work that you may need to do may not be that goal that you had back in January. Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world. In today's episode about developing your influence by stewarding your time, I talk with you about the sort of hustle shame that's being put out right now, how I want you to accomplish your goals, and the your is the key to that, and how not comparing yourselves to others is a key in being able to really do this. As we talk about stewarding your time, wouldn't it be great if you could support this podcast and do it without just taking too long? Turns out you can't. All you have to do is use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon when you're ready to make a purchase via Amazon, and a small commission will come back to support the show just that quick. If you enjoy the show when you are ready to buy from Amazon, just use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon. So here we are in the midst of this COVID-19 situation, and so many people are stuck at home right now. Maybe you're still working from home. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're out of work right now. Maybe you've got some additional time on your hands, but maybe you've also got things going on around you that are keeping you from using that time as well as possible. And there's this post going around that I've seen a couple of times now in different settings, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Basically, it says that if you have this time going on and you don't come out of it having learned a new skill or started a new business or worked towards any of your goals or even achieved any of your goals, then it's not time that you didn't have enough of. It's that you didn't have enough desire or discipline or drive to get it done. And the first thing I want to point out is that post really, really glosses over a lot of things about the reality of going on right now, the reality that's happening right now. You know, for one thing, if you've lost a job, if you've had something else going on that's caused you to have to step back, or if you're stuck at home and you're working, but you're also trying to keep your kids going and busy with school, or even just staying sane because they're stuck at home as well, and maybe that's not something that they're dealing with well. You know, if you're dealing with the emotional situation that's going on as well as the practical situation, you may or may not have the emotional bandwidth to do a ton right now. It's sort of a shaming post to say that if you don't do this, then somehow you're a failure. And here's the thing. If you want to look at yourself and you want to push yourself to get something done, I have no problem with that. If you look at yourself right now and you say, hey, I used to commute an hour to work each way. And so now, even though I'm still working from home, I've effectively got 2 hours of my day that used to be tied up sitting in the car that I can do something with. And I'm going to choose to start my side hustle now, or I'm going to choose to take this course that I've been putting off, or I'm going to choose to spend some time working on a new skill or a new ability that I've been putting off learning how to do. That's fantastic. More power to you. And that is an awesome, awesome goal. But at the same time, you can't then look at someone else who's not able to do that. Either practically they're not able to. Maybe right now their full-time work is trying to find a new job because they've got to have some income coming in. Maybe right now they're dealing with the fact that they've got a chaotic situation at home and they're having to deal with the emotions of fear and worry and stress and strain that's going on in their life right now. Maybe right now there's something else going on in their mind or their heart, and that's keeping them from using their time as effectively as possible. You can't judge other people's use of time. You can't guilt them about it. That's not going to effectively drive them forward. This is one of those things as a coach. It's interesting because I do have to hold people accountable, but I don't judge or guilt people. It's a weird balancing act because I want you to accomplish your goals. I want you to figure out what's important to you. The your part is the key, making it important to you. Do you have a reason that's big enough to drive you forward? Do you have a why that will keep you going when things get tough? And if you don't, then that's where you have to start. And you can't compare your why and your journey to anyone else's. You've probably heard the expression, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle or end. Well, I'll tell you, let's go further than that. Don't compare your beginning to anyone else's beginning either. Because the truth is, we're all different people. We have different drives. We have different reasons. We have different goals. We have different emotional systems. We have different personalities. And so the way that you're dealing with this situation right now may keep you from making any progress on your goals. It may even keep you from making progress on them forever. No, it won't. Instead, it may just be right now. And maybe right now your goal needs to shift and pivot, and your goal needs to be dealing with the emotion that's going on right now and getting back to a place where you're on an emotional center. Because now once you've done that, now you can make the forward progress again. See, we often ignore how we feel and we don't even think about it. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a firm believer that action creates belief instead of belief creates action. I don't think you can willpower your way into success. I think you do it by doing things. You have to take action. If you want to believe that you're a writer, then you need to begin writing. If you want to believe that you're a business owner, then you need to begin doing things that create clients and customers and cash flow and create a business. It's the doing that creates the belief, not the belief that creates the doing. So don't try to will yourself into doing these things. Instead, set up the systems, the processes, and the routines so that you begin doing the work. But what I'm saying is right now, the work that you may need to do may not be that goal that you had back in January. You may need to take a step back and revisit your goals. You may need to take a step back and recenter yourself. And that doesn't mean you did anything wrong in January. It doesn't mean your goals were wrong. It just means that the situation has changed and you need to acknowledge and deal with that new reality. This happens all the time, and it doesn't have to be bad stuff either. I've had people suddenly come into a large amount of money and have to deal with that new reality that at first glance is nothing but good news. You just inherited $1 million. Now what are you going to do? But it does change things. Your why needs to be able to survive changes that are good and bad, but your goal may pivot. Your why stays consistent, but what you do about it can change. And right now, what you may need to do is spend some time healing, spend some time grieving, spend some time recognizing what is your new reality. And then, and only then, do you need to step back and start doing the actions that move you towards the goals that you have. Don't let anyone else guilt you into it. Don't let anyone else tell you that just because you're not making as much progress as they are, you're somehow automatically a failure. Recognize the fact that if you're doing the work for your goal, that's enough. And you're more than enough. You're already succeeding, and keep pushing forward. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of time, be sure to sign up for our Stewardship of Time Tips series by going to inspiredstewardship.com/time or texting 44222 time tips, and that'll get you our best tips on stewarding your time. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.